Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Comics Evolve, where we discuss all things around comics media culture with your hosts, Andy, Jarian, and Alex.
Welcome to Comics Evolve with myself, Jarian Gibson.
And I'm Alex Stroud.
And bear with me a moment. I'm going to double check that we're live everywhere. There were some issues with the platform earlier where Alex got sent into La La Land. So let me double check to make sure we're streaming. I got the notifications from Twitch, from Kick, from Trovo. Interesting that we're not. Let me check the Facebook page. Maybe Facebook was the one having issues and that's why it was being weird.
Down the rabbit hole we go.
Yeah, because I noticed too it didn't show a schedule notification for it. It looks like we are not live on Facebook, but oh well, we'll just roll with it and we'll get the recording posted. So yeah, there are some mild technical difficulties. So those of you that usually watch on Facebook, if you're not seeing this, sorry about that. It looks like we are live everywhere else. So let me just tell the people in our other group too that we are live. 1 second. So Twitter, Twitch, YouTube. We should be live on YouTube. YouTube, etc. All of them now. I have not checked YouTube yet, though. I guess I should check YouTube to make sure we're live on YouTube today. 1 second.
It was up there earlier. Yeah, it looks like it's up.
Okay, we're up. So everywhere but Facebook we're good. Okay, so it's been a few weeks. How you doing today, Alex?
Good. I know we talked about the funniest news that I have to kind of talk about today that I'm honestly, weirdly the most excited about was I watched Inside Out for the first time, the first one, like 3 weeks ago.
Yeah.
And then I went and saw the second one in theaters. And so I hadn't seen the first movie, and I had watched it, and then they were basically coming out with like the second one like a week or two later. And so I went and saw the second one and kind of I've been really into those movies. I like those movies. I did not think that I would really care for them, but yeah, I was pretty surprised and I really liked them. So I know you probably haven't seen the second one yet. I know you said you wanted to, but you haven't seen it yet.
Yeah, so I really enjoyed the first one. We went to the theater and saw it with the kids when it came out. My wife and kids went with my sister and my niece last weekend. We were in Omaha. I was in a class, so I wasn't able to go, but they said it was good. Mm-hmm. They said it was really good. They really enjoyed it. So I want to see it. I'm looking forward to seeing it.
Yeah, I think that's Pixar. I think that's the first Pixar movie I've been to the theaters to see in a really long time. So went and saw it like either the night after it came out or, that weekend. So yeah, really good movie. I'm not going to give any spoilers, but really good movie. I enjoyed it. So
any good previews?
Any good previews? I'm going to be honest with you. I am one of those people that I always seem to show up like right in the middle of the previews. So I missed most of the previews. And by the time I got there and sat down, the movie literally started in like a minute. So I literally made it there right before the movie started. So
okay.
I kind of missed a lot of the previews for the most part on that one. So
okay. Yeah, so I guess we'll have to see what else coming out. Probably nothing good because it's a kids movie, so I don't think they're gonna have any kind of other previews in there. So
most likely, yeah, you're probably right.
I did watch. Oh, go ahead.
I was just gonna say, what about you? Have you watched anything good recently?
Yes, I did watch the last and final season of Sweet Tooth.
Oh, how is that?
It was really good. I was surprised the way they ended it. They kind of went back a little bit to it and showed some more backstory of the characters. It seemed like it was a lot focused around the lady who ran the Texas territory from the season before. So that group was heavily involved with it, and they showed a lot of her backstory. So that was pretty cool. I did like the season. I like how it ended. I'm not gonna spoil it, but there is some good stuff in there. Um, and it just seems like they answer a lot of questions and stuff that happened on the way there. So, it's 3 or 4 seasons. So your audio went low again. Let's see what happens here when you come back.
Can you hear me better now?
Yes, it's back now again. But yeah,
Okay.
it was pretty good. I think it's 3 or 4 seasons. It might be just 3 seasons.
Okay.
Yeah, so it is pretty good. I'm trying to think what else we watched as well because my wife and I watched that. I was on vacation, and then this week just getting back, and then I was on Omaha last weekend. So I'm trying to think anything else that I've watched or seen. Um, but I did see they're making another serial killer type project. This one's on Peacock. They're making one on Gacy.
Really?
On Peacock, yeah. So that looked pretty interesting. From the preview, I saw that one. But yeah, I don't think I've watched really anything else. I still need to watch Lost. I saw you guys in the chat talking about Lost. I
Oh
still need to
man,
watch
such a
it.
good show. Such a
Yeah.
good show. I mean, that one is just one of those like so funny enough about Lost. I never watched Lost when it came out. It came out when I was in high school. And I never watched Lost. I didn't care about it. Like I remember I had a teacher, we would go and sit down in like biology class and the teacher would just talk about it nonstop. And like it was like the first 10 minutes of class, she would talk about it, and then like some of the students would talk about it. And I'd always sit there and be like, what are they talking about? And then like years later, I sit down. I'm like, you know what? There's really nothing I can watch. I'm gonna watch Lost. And man, I cannot believe that I waited so long to watch that show. It was so good. Um, I don't remember how many seasons it is. It's quite a few seasons, but it's kind of one of those that it's like a slow burn. You really don't really know what's going on, and you really don't really fully understand everything. I mean, it's just crazy. It's all over the place, but it was a fantastic show. I really enjoyed it.
Nice. I saw some of the chat there, and I figured some stuff was up already with the show, so I'll just sit down and watch it one of these days. Probably something I'll binge.
You haven't seen the show The 12 Monkeys, have you? I think you
I've
watched
seen
the
parts of
movie.
it. Yeah, I've seen parts when I've seen the movie.
Yeah, there's like a time traveling city in that show, and it kind of reminds me. It's called Titan. It reminds me of the island in Lost. It's kind of like moving all over the place, and so there's like stuff there that's from different time periods because it kind of
Jumps
jumps.
around.
Yeah, and so there's stuff there from the Egyptians. There's stuff there from like the 1700s. At one point, like they're on the island and they find a polar bear, and it's like, what is this polar bear doing on this like tropical island? So, it's very interesting. But yeah, it's a great show. It's one of those you just go down the rabbit hole and you just start pulling the thread, and it's like eventually the full sweater unravels. But pretty good.
Good. I'll have to finish watching it. I've only seen parts of it, so I need to get caught on that one. Do you see there's new Deadpool kind of TV spots and stuff, and showing some new things?
Yeah, I've seen a couple of things. I think with Deadpool, what they've been really good at is they've been really good at advertising, I think, everything without really giving away too much, right? Like, so I mean, obviously we haven't seen the movie yet, but I still think that there's a lot of meat on the bone that's there for the previews and everything. Like just what we see, we're just getting a small taste. Honestly, I would like to be really surprised going
Yeah.
into that movie. So I'm really excited for that movie. It's coming out next month.
Yep. A couple weeks now. Probably what,
Yeah.
3 or 4 weeks now? What's the
I was gonna
official
say it's
date?
like July 26th, I think is when it is.
I think you're right. Let me double
So
check.
um I've been doing a rewatch of Loki because somebody I'm taking to the movie has not seen Loki all the way through. So we're in season 2 of Loki. And
Nice.
yeah, I mean it's pretty exciting to see, Deadpool in the MCU #1, but just to see what they're gonna do with this movie, because I think they've kept everything pretty much under wraps for the most part.
Yeah.
So I know that we've had some questions about, is Taylor Swift going to be in this movie and stuff like
Actually,
that.
I have some Taylor Swift news, so I doubt she's in the film because it sounds like she might be into the project.
No,
When we get to the news. Um, July 25th, Thursday, is when it comes out.
Okay.
Yeah, it seems like we're going to get a version of Juggernaut. If you look closely in some of the shots, it looks like we're going to get a version of Juggernaut. It also looks like there's another person that people keep saying is Blade from the TV show that was not that good, but it's not Blade. It's possibly a Kingpin-type character. I'm going blank on the name. You get better shots, more shots of Toad in some of the newer trailers, the portal stuff. So, but yeah, they're not giving a whole bunch away. They've kind of sneaked out a few more characters, but nothing major, which I'm surprised. And I'm surprised that there's no major spoilers out there either at this point, because usually by this time there is. So they're keeping a lot under wraps very well, or they're putting so much misdirection out there to the scoopers that they don't know what to say and what not to be called out for it once the movie comes out.
With the Juggernaut thing, like in the preview, it's like, you can stop and you can look, and there's a shot where it looks like part of his arm from that costume is showing, and like part of his leg, and
Part of the helmet too.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
it's like, it's very minuscule, like the little like kind of tip that they give there, and obviously that's camera magic. They did that on purpose, put that in the trailer that way. But I know a lot of people are arguing over that, but that's got to be Juggernaut. I forget what that guy's name is.
Vinny Jones.
Yeah, Vinny Jones. And I mean, I know people talked about he was basically not planning on coming back at all to play that role, but that, who knows? Maybe they put somebody else in that suit.
Yeah.
Maybe it's a similar, or maybe they CGI'd it a little bit more. Who knows? But it definitely looks like he's in there. So.
And you have actors deny it too, and it could be the whole Andrew Garfield thing with No Way Home, that kind of stuff. Where I think what Elektra, the actress who played Elektra, Jennifer Garner, thank you, and then Laura Kinney, who played X-23. She's kind of had denial and that kind of stuff. So maybe we'll see them, maybe we won't. But yeah, it's gonna be very interesting, and we're pretty much in the meat of it. So I think we're gonna have probably Andy back by that time. I was hoping to have him back for the boy stuff, but not yet. But I think we'll probably definitely have him back by our Deadpool preview episode.
Which, and I'll throw this out there too. I saw something the other day. I don't know how true it is, but it would be really interesting that we might see Wolverine in the mask for like 10 minutes in the movie. So, that's...
And the sleeves.
Yeah. So, and I feel like that's going to be one of those things, like he's going to put the costume on, he's going to wear the sleeves for a little bit, he's going to be like, oh, I'm tired of these, and just rip those off or something.
So restricting.
Yeah, exactly. And then rip the mask off or something. But that's kind of, just to pay off to all the fans, I think, that want to see him in that costume and have wanted to see him in that costume for a really long time. So, hopefully Hugh Jackman comes back for more after this. At least Secret Wars or something. I know a lot of people are looking for, Wolverine to be recast and stuff, but I hope we get him at least just a little bit longer. So,
yeah, I probably think that Secret Wars might be his last hurrah if this one isn't. It'll be interesting to see too that if we do get the MCU, like the one going forward, Wolverine teased in this film or shown, or maybe we don't know for sure, but there's like several variants that we see of different actors playing the role. Like there's been like some rumors out there about Henry Cavill and Daniel Radcliffe was the other one, I think. Yeah, he was Harry Potter, right?
Yeah.
I always get him and Elijah Wood mixed up, so I had the double think on that one. But yeah, so I'm interested to see if we get other people in there and kind of give misdirection on who the MCU one going forward will be.
And I hate to say this, but I would really like to see Henry Cavill play another role, and I've said before that I would like to see Daniel Radcliffe play Wolverine, but I mean, at this point, it's like, we've already got Hugh Jackman. I don't want to, since he's back now, I don't want to, like, be focused on the next actor to play that. Like, I would like Hugh Jackman to stay a little bit longer, but it would be awesome to see him in Secret Wars and then see like Kang kill him and make an example out of him or something, and Deadpool lose it because Deadpool just went on this adventure with him. So that would be kind of cool. But yeah, I'm really curious to see what they do with that. I know we've got that soft reboot kind of incoming in the future, And there's a lot of projects that I feel like are going to be kind of up in the air. I mean, I'm sure we'll talk about Blade at some point today, but
Yeah, we
that
will.
seems like the never-ending movie. You've heard of the never-ending story? I mean, that's like the
Yeah.
never-ending movie. So that movie seems to have like more problems going on than like the original Blade trilogy kind of had with Wesley Snipes. So it is what it is. But
So let's talk about the content of the day, or the topic of the day today. So we are in The Boys season 4, and we're 2 weeks into the season. The first week they dropped 3 episodes, and then the 4th episode was last week. I'm surprised so far we have not seen much from Gen V yet in this series.
Yeah, I mean, there was like a few little hints to Gen V. I think there was like a shot where it touched on like the Guardians of
The Godolphin. Yeah.
And then I think they mentioned, some events of Gen V. We saw Butcher at the underground facility in Gen V at the end of that show. So obviously he's aware of that soup virus, and it seems like they're going to do something with that at some point. And I mean, we'll get to it a little bit more, but you've got Singer that finds out that Newman is a soup in these first few episodes, so he's looking for a way to kill her. So I'm sure that's probably going to make its way into this show, that virus. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how they kind of move forward. I still think Singer will end up being killed and Newman will end up becoming president. But and she'll end up just like popping his head or something like that. And and go ahead.
So talking about Newman, that was episode 1, right?
Mm-hmm.
The season starts off with them trying to basically kill Newman, and they're trying to. It seems like you get the vibe they're already trying to sideline Butcher, and Butcher kind of throws off the, their plan there. So they try to put acid eye drops in her eye drops to kind of see if that will do it. Her daughter catches them in the room. And we saw last season that she injected her daughter with the Gen V, or not Gen V, with the Compound V, and we see her powers.
Absolute creepiest powers. Yeah. I mean, they're like, they remind me of, and I said this before, like the strain, like those things that come out of their mouth and the strain, kind of like Blade 3. Like
yes.
Yeah,
I was thinking the same thing.
Yeah, so it's kind of weird seeing those, but obviously there's like 4, but like she is super strong. Like she's just ripping through people with those things. And pretty terrifying. And, I was kind of like, oh, man, those are kind of weird powers. But I mean, that's kind of the thing about the Compound V, right? Like, you don't really know what you're going to get. So, and Newman said that she wanted her daughter to be strong so she'd be protected. And sure enough, I mean, she seems like she's pretty protected. So.
And trying to take out Newman, they threw the acid. Huey threw right in her face, didn't do anything. Butcher shot her point blank in the head, didn't do anything. It's almost like they can't do anything to the headwise to her. Does she have a weakness somewhere else on her body?
Yeah, and I think watching Gen V, I think a lot of people looked at what was her Monroe? Was that the blood power girl?
Yes, yeah.
Yeah. So she had very similar powers to Newman, and they established that in the show. So we saw Homelander heat vision her in the show, and everybody was like, well, how did she kind of survive, right? Well, it seems like, who knows? I mean, we could be wrong here, but maybe she's got some kind of invulnerability like Newman has, and that's how she survived. I mean, I think that was kind of like a little bit of a surprise. I didn't expect her to be so invulnerable. Like, I think we knew that she could pop people's heads and she had the blood power, but it seems like her powers have kind of evolved almost, and we've seen them become more than what we originally thought they were. We still got that other soup, Cindy, out there. I think her name was. She was from the mental institution that Lamplighter worked with, that had the same powers as Newman. So I don't know if she'll ever make an appearance or what, if that was just kind of show how powerful they are. But between Newman and Homelander, it seems like you've kind of got like an unstoppable force versus a movable object kind of type of thing. Because, they've questioned, can she take down a Homelander type, character, or it seems now maybe Homelander may not be able to kill her. It's very questionable. So really curious to see how that Homelander and Newman relationships develops, because we see them later on and they meet in public, and she's like, stay away from me, stay away from me. So
I almost wonder if who was Gina Carano's character called again? because he was close with Newman.
Stan Edgar.
Yes, Edgar. Yes, thank you. I wonder if Edgar and Vought had her engineered to be the kind of like the kryptonite to Homelander.
Mm-hmm.
Because just the way that Edgar was close with her, all that kind of stuff. So far, we've seen that she doesn't have a weakness. We saw that Monroe, she didn't have, she took the eye blast from Homelander and she's still alive. So I almost wonder if there's a certain way they engineer that to have some kind of counter to Homelander.
Yeah, and I think that was a thing, at one point in the show when Homelander meets her. I think his kind of question that he poses to her is, why don't you go ahead and see if you can pop my head? Let's see if it works or something like that. So it's kind of one of those things like, is she strong enough to take down Homelander? I don't know if that question will ever be answered, but it's a very kind of weird question that they pose there, because maybe that was the original plan. Maybe Stan Edgar adopted her because he thought that maybe she would be able to take down a rogue Homelander. We'll get into it later on, but you see kind of the weird stuff Homelander went through as a child and everything like that. And he's very disassociated with his humanity at this point. So,
but actually, Homelander's coming full circle back to his humanity, though, because yes, he's saying disassociated, but we see that he's getting gray hair, he's losing hair, he's even collecting his hair. We saw at one point in the season. So there is maybe that Homelander's powers could be wearing down, or just the natural aging process could be the one that does take him down.
The collecting the hair part is so weird. I was like, yeah, it's so creepy. And I think that's kind of one of those things, as Supes, they always believe that they're immortal, basically. That's how Vought markets these heroes, is they're basically invulnerable, immortal, and they're always going to be there protecting the people, yada, yada, yada. But even Homelander ages, right?
Yep.
And there's a line at one point in the show when he is standing there talking to a director or something, and the director makes a remark about his wrinkles or something, and how they'll buff that out in post-production. And I think Homelander's kind of like, what? And it seems like he's going through a midlife crisis. I don't want to call it that, but it does kind of seem like that. It seems like he's really questioning himself. And it's kind of one of those things. I think that's why that he's trying to push that, Ryan will be my replacement one day and everything like that, is because he's starting to realize that he's getting older,
But what's weird though is that his parents are basically Soldier Boy and Liberty Bell / Stormfront, and it didn't look like neither of them aged at all. Yes, Soldier Boy was kept on ice, but Stormfront, Liberty Bell / Stormfront wasn't. She didn't show anything until Ryan Blast her, pretty much made her a bedridden patient until she passed. So yeah, is there some mix up there in the way they engineered Homelander that's causing this? Because again, we didn't see anything with Soldier Boy or Stormfront with the aging thing, and which leads him to find an unlikely new ally as they're looking to fill out the 7 again, right? He brings on Sister Sage on to kind of help him build his Caesar / kind of turn the world into itself to make them see him the savior, but they're going to build that kingdom for Ryan. And also, too, it seems like there's the whole people that are on the side of Homelander, the Homelanders, I guess. What are they called? I know the one side's called the Starlighters. Yeah, Homefront, thank you. Called the Homefront versus the Starlighters. And it looks like they frame the Starlighters to seeing that they did that at the results of his trial, which he was found not guilty, based on all the propaganda and that kind of stuff they've been doing. So that was interesting. But the most interesting thing is that we find out that we have a replacement for Black Noir. It's not the same Black Noir, but it's the same actor that played Black Noir. This one can talk.
And it's too much.
Yes.
He talked way too much.
Which makes me wonder, because when they had that scene of them killing the Homefront people to frame the Starlighters, he had that one swing and basically took that dude's head clean to pieces. So he has to be a Supe. And we know that A-Train has history with Sister Sage from the past. I almost wonder from their youth that they all know each other, the new Black Noir, Sister Sage, and A-Train. and I wonder if we're going to see any more of that, of what also powers that this new Black Noir has as the season goes on.
And I like that scene where he goes and approaches Sister Sage, and basically he gives her a kind of off the cuff audition where he shows up in normal clothes, and it seems like, you know, first time ever he's ever been seen really in normal clothes, and he appears to her, and he basically like asks her some questions, and she basically tells him why she knows he's there, and you know, yada yada yada. And it's kind of like, you know, he's the brawn, she's the brains kind of type of deal. And yeah, I mean, I think that moving forward, I was thinking about this the other day. I think with a character like that, it's so awesome because there's been a couple of moments where I don't really understand what the plan is. But when you have a super intelligent character like that, you shouldn't really be able to telegraph everything that they plan, right?
Yeah.
Like, you should be really caught off guard by everything. And we'll see that later on in a couple of the episodes. But, you know, it seems like she gets mad at one point when Homelander kills that girl in the office.
Yep.
And, you know, like, it's kind of like, hey, that wasn't part of my plan. And so you can tell she's a little bit frustrated. But, you know, we see Ashley in that moment. Ashley was going to leave Vought, and then she shreds her letter of intent to leave because now she's terrified that she'll be killed by Homelander.
Yep.
So, you know, I think Sister Sage being on, I'm really curious to see what they do with her going forward, what the overall plan is going to be the White House. That's where this is going to end. You know, you see later on, basically Homelander mentions to Newman, hey, I want you to come out as a suit. I want you to tell the world that you're a suit. And basically that's like, you know, I don't think part of the plan originally, because when that is said, it seems like Sister Sage is like, that wasn't part, like she kind of gives him a weird look, like that wasn't part of the plan, you know, at this point. So, you know, it seems like Homelander's working with Sister Sage to like kind of follow her plan, but then with his weird kind of like mental stuff going on right now, he just veers off on some things. And yeah, that killing those people to blame it on the Starlight protesters, that was pretty crazy. Like, 'cause, you know, he's like, hey, you're my biggest fans, now kill them.
Yeah.
You know, like, and it's like, whoa. And you know, like we'll get to it later on, but something happens where it's like the Starlight protesters being blamed in that episode is kind of the first domino to fall.
Mm-hmm.
And that sets up, you know, something for Starlight getting in an attack later on. I think that really like paints the picture that she's a villain. Like they're trying to paint that she's bad, you know.
We also see too that her powers are evolving as well.
Mm-hmm.
You know, she has the whole like group of people for her that she goes to that have that headquarters. Mm-hmm. We see some CIA stuff, so we see that Mother's Milk's in charge now. Mm-hmm. Everything, you know. Oh, where'd he go? Let me bring him back. 1 second. Okay, you're back.
That's weird.
That was weird. Yeah. So yeah, we see that Mother's Milk's in charge. They're back at the CIA. Butcher meets an old friend who's Jeffrey D. Morgan's character. And do we think he's real, or is he hallucinating that?
To be honest, so we know he's talking to Becca. We know that he's like having the hallucinations of Becca. It doesn't really seem like whenever we always have those moments in TV shows and movies, I always see like how the character, whenever you think it's a hallucination or whatever, interacts with the world around them. And it doesn't really seem like he interacts with anything or anywhere around him. Like he comes in and he sits in a chair.
Yeah.
But I swear when he like pours the alcohol in his cup that he never reaches out and drinks out of the cup or anything like that. Yeah. So I think he's dead. I think that's kind of one of those that it's like Mallory's grandkids that were killed by Lamplighter. I think it's like one of those like he's probably killed by Soup and maybe he's having flashbacks. It seems Butcher's kind of like he, you know, Homelander mentions he's got a spot on his brain. I don't know, and we'll get into the thing that's slithering around inside of him like later on.
We are Venom.
Yeah, exactly. But it feels like there's something going on in his head. And I know he's on the clock to die, but I'm
6 months.
I'm not exactly sure if he's actually going to die or not at the end of this, because originally I thought he would die at the end of the show, and he's seeing a lot of these people like Kessler, like Becca, but just simply because it's like his brain is like struggling through all this and everything, and it's like him kind of having grief and everything, and Becca's making the argument he's got to save Ryan. We see him trying to forge a better relationship with Ryan throughout the first few episodes. But yeah, I think Kessler is actually dead. And I know Jamie mentioned that he thought that Huey's mother was actually like a hallucination, but I think she's actually like alive in the show based on.
Oh yeah, she is. Yeah, I think she's alive too. When we get to that,
yeah. So, it wouldn't be surprising to me if that was like a side effect of Temp V, that Butcher and Huey are seeing hallucinations and stuff like that, and that's why they're having that.
And when it gets to Huey's mother, it also could be a Fight Club type scenario too.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll get to that though when we get to episode 4. But speaking of Huey, we find out his dad has a stroke. And I think that's pretty much. Oh, and then also Butcher tells Ryan that he has 6 months to live. You said mention Ryan, him trying to get in Ryan's good graces. So that was the first episode, which I think it started out pretty good. I liked it. It did feel like a little slow this episode, but I felt it started the season off well.
Mm-hmm. And I think ironically, it's so funny. The very thing that Homelander is like trying to kill it himself, which is like Homelander's seeing that he's like moral, right? So he's trying to kill that last little bit of humanity in himself, that like, and be done with it. But then you've got Ryan, who is basically not like Homelander, and he has humanity. We see him kill that man by accidentally, throws him into a wall like 30 feet up a building, and is like horrified, and he goes home and he cries and he's all upset, and Homelander's like, oh, you killed somebody, like what do you care, like, and so I think like, that's kind of setting up like an eventual showdown between the two, where it's like,
definitely.
Butcher's making an argument to Ryan to have humanity, like your mother taught you to be a good person, and ultimately I think the fear of Vought was Ryan would grow up and be even more of a psychopath than Homelander, and potentially even more powerful. So like, that's terrifying to them, because they basically made Homelander like a lab rat. So ultimately going forward, they don't want to have another psycho like him. Because I mean, most of the heroes and soups at Vought are degenerates, right? Like they're all crazy. They've got weird kind of fetishes and stuff like that. So weird.
The deep.
But, yeah. I mean, like they're all in their own little weird world, but it seems like it's mostly all the older ones, and I don't know if that's because, like, in Gen V, it seems like some of them are weird and they have weird kind of things going on, but more of them, like Monroe and stuff, are more better adjusted as people than the older heroes.
I think like with Newman and Monroe and that kind of stuff, the way they were raised too, and that kind of stuff, kind of helped. I also think with Ryan, him being the first natural born soup, also being raised by Becca, I think that plays more to his humanity side as well. Whereas pretty much some of these people were just lab rats, right? Especially Homelander. And we see that when we get to episode 4. But yeah, moving on to episode 2, Life Among the Septics. This is where we find out that they're kicking Butcher out. That Sister Sage is putting her plan into action by going to that TruthCon thing, where that definitely affects the Wolverine, like what's her name? Kimiko. Thank you. I went blank on that one. Where it definitely does impact Kimiko, where she sees a flyer that's kind of depicting what she went through, but it was a lie. So
but
interesting.
She gets really drunk.
Yeah, she gets blasted. Yeah,
and then like it's like, oh man, and she starts drinking like the A Train alcohol. Kind of stuff like that.
Like 8 beers deep.
yeah. So I thought that was really funny. That they kind of threw that in there, because it kind of seems like it kind of pushes her to not really get in the right mindset that she needed to be in that environment. So, and
we find out that Butcher is one step ahead of Mother's Milk because he knows Mother Milk's credentials to the CIA system, so he can find that out. So he's there when they show up. Sage is there to recruit Firecracker, which she is fashioned after a actual true person. I'm not going to go into that one because we don't get into politics on this. But I think that's spot on. You know, you can go read out there and find out who they kind of fashioned her after. But yeah, and we have Splinter, which is the guy who can pretty much clone himself, and there's a Prime one. I'll just say there is a very graphic locker room / sauna scene. We're not gonna get into details, but I was cracking up laughing when I saw that. I was like, there's always one moment per season in The Boys that kind of like, what the hell type of scenario. You know, there was the whole house with love sausages and that kind of stuff, and that whole episode last season. This one, I don't think there's gonna be another one like this season. I think this is the one for this season. I could be wrong. But yeah, that was a very graphic scene there in the sauna.
and what's funny to me is Splinter, the guy that plays Splinter, I do not remember his name, but he is another supernatural, like, you know, person from the show Supernatural. So, like, you know, Kripke brought him over. You know, he played God in Supernatural. They called him Chuck, but basically, you know, seeing him in this, it was very funny because I love that moment where he gets killed and he's just like, the Prime is dead, the Prime, and then they all die. They all die. And like, it's like, you know, I was sitting there thinking to myself, like, man, if I had those powers, I would just leave the Prime like locked in a closet somewhere, protected all the time, and then just send the next one out and just have him. But, you know, I get it. Maybe I don't really know how Splinter's powers work, but when he started like splitting and was like in that bar mitzvah fighting them naked and everything, it's just like, it's just the typical like The Boys show, you know, like it is just crazy how it gets sometimes, but it's funny.
And speaking of that, you see how smart Sage is, because she's one step of, because basically she's there to recruit Firecracker. That's her main reason there. Nothing else. And we've seen that she used that opportunity that she knows that Mother's Milk and them are onto her. She basically fashions a trap for them. That's the whole fight ensues with Splinter and that kind of stuff. Butcher saves the day, you know, coming in. So all those type of things. But you know, we see more of Kimiko's powers too as well on display. You know, she gets messed up a couple times this season already, like inside blowing out, all kinds of stuff. And, you know, a few minutes she's back, you know, as well. So, yeah, we're seeing the whole thing with Sage here and how knows she's on Mother's Milk. I think they have history. At one point, I thought there was some kind of comment maybe between the two when she finds them out. But, yeah, that was interesting. Go ahead before I get to that.
I was just gonna say Firecracker is a weird character to me because it seems like it's kind of like a worse version of Jubilee, right?
Yes,
like with her powers.
Yes.
You know? So like it's like, okay, but like she briefly shows her powers, but there's like nothing to them. And I'm like, is that all she can do is just make little sparks, or are they bigger? Are they worse, like in the show, you know?
I think that Sister Sage and Firecracker are strategic additions to the Seven. Yeah, because Sister Sage, obviously her intellect, and she's the smartest person on Earth.
And planning and everything.
Firecracker is because of all her social media, her following, the propaganda. She's like the marketing person. So I don't think we're going to see, unless her powers evolve over the season or she finds a way to unlock them more, I think all of her power is going to be the whole marketing side of things for the Seven. So we're still one person short now on the Seven, which they hope that Ryan will fill out, or possibly someone else. Go ahead.
Right, I was just gonna say that's the funny line by Homelander. He's like, "Oh, you know, we've only got 6 of us. Like, maybe I'm holding on to that 7th spot for Ryan." And it's like, "Oh, okay," but like, which they have that funny little scene where they show Ryan like what they would like his super suit to look like, and they call him Homeboy, and I laugh so hard at that because it's just like he's like a mini Homelander is basically all he is. So, it's so funny.
A slide kick and the whole slide kick comments by Sister Sage, but. Back to the boys, the other half of the team stays behind. So Huey and Annie stay behind because Huey wants to stay close to home. Annie is trying to fill out A-Train. It does seem like there's possibly an alliance forming here with A-Train starting, because A-Train gives them the files. They're able to show that the proof that the Starlighters that got framed for killing the Homefront people in the first episode, they got released. So it does seem like there is some alliance here forming with A-Train and the boys. And then back to, we get to the rescue with Ryan. So
Yeah. Just jump on A Train a little bit. Let me kind of make a U-turn back to that. A Train, I think through this show, we're seeing he's trying to make amends, right, for a lot of his problems in the past.
The relationship with his brother, the thing with Huey's girlfriend.
Yep, and he at one point, I thought a very sad moment was when he's like meeting his nephews and he's like telling them all about like, oh, I saved this person and I did this, and it's like he's trying to like show them some glory that he had, and then his brother comes in and he's like, no, that was all fake, like that's a movie.
Yep.
And like, yeah, that was crazy. So, seeing where A Train's journey is gonna go, I have this weird feeling he's going to die this season. I don't know why. It seems like, Homelander's like picking up the trail that somebody's betraying the Seven and Vought. And now
it seems like Sage is on to him a little bit too already as well, because she's giving some looks also. So
yeah, so it's like, the Deep is kind of becoming like a pawn for Sage. We see he's kind of just doing his thing. Firecracker, she's a new addition, and so is Sage, but there's not very many people. Obviously, he killed Black Noir, so Black Noir is an actor now that is playing. So it's like, there's only a very small number of people that can be suspected, in my opinion. So it's like A Train is, I feel like,
the prime candidate.
Yeah. He's gonna be seen eventually as like, as soon as somebody is like, oh, well, it's either A Train, the Deep, or like Ashley. It's like, oh, okay, well, it's gonna probably be A Train because, at one point, I think Ashley might push him out in front of the bus, because we see later on that they run into each other and catch themselves in compromising positions. So,
but also too, it could be A-Train could throw Ashley under if she could end up being the one to fall on the sword too, because she has the most to lose from this after pretty much being pushed out as the actual benefacto leader now of Vought, and we're now with Sage coming in and Homelander basically saying, get out. She could be the prime candidate too as well, or end up being the fall guy this season with A-Train surviving possibly. But I think one of them will die or be outed.
Yeah. Back to Ryan. What did you say about Ryan?
The rescue, right? So we get to the scripted rescue, and Homelander can't, let Ryan shine on his own. He shows up, he kind of forces Ryan to kind of just throw the guy and kill the guy, which the guy is a stunt coordinator that helps them plan the fake rescues. So that was an interesting scenario, but you can start seeing the cracks forming more between Ryan and Homelander.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, like, I think, obviously, I think the biggest part for Ryan moving forward in this show is he's going to be struggling with, do I be like Butcher? Do I be like Homelander? I mean, technically, I guess Butcher is good, but I mean, he does some pretty terrible stuff too, So, but like, at one point they wanted Ryan to go with Mallory and become an asset and all that kind of stuff. And even Kessler makes the argument to Butcher at one point, either he becomes an asset or we find a way to kill it. Those are our two options. So that's kind of where I think this is heading. Obviously, I think everybody in the world's kind of coming to the belief now that Ryan will become more powerful than Homelander and most likely kill Homelander, kind of as like an alternative to Black Noir in the comics, being like, a Homelander clone that kills, comes after Homelander. It's more going to be probably like a Ryan or whatever that fills that void. But yeah, that one scene, it destroys Ryan, and you see Homelander, and he's just like, oh, it's just, it's just a person. I kill people all the time, like, oh, that happens. Like, and Homelander's made some remarks like people are cockroaches and stuff like that. So, I think that's kind of like going to be the beginning for Homelander's downfall in Ryan's mind, where he's going to start to kind of push back against Homelander a little bit.
So going to episode 3, we'll keep the red flag flying here. We start off with the new 7. Sage is now the CEO in Ashley's place. And this is what we were talking about before, where Butcher and Kessler start forming the plan about kidnapping Ryan, trying to make him an asset or killing him. Butcher with the cookies that he drugs to kind of subdue Ryan. Mm-hmm. But after the talks with him and Ryan have and the time they've been together, he doesn't give him the cookies. He tosses them. And it seems like Butcher is playing kind of the long game here and not the short game here with Ryan.
I think for Butcher, it's like Butcher's on the clock. As far as he knows, he's got 6 months to live. So his kind of argument to Ryan is he's trying to appeal to his humanity, which is something Homelander just is not capable of doing, right? Like, other than Homelander wearing like normal people clothes, I don't think he's really shown much humanity, like, throughout this show.
Well, just think back to even the plane rescue where him and Queen Maeve, and he basically starts killing people on the plane when he's there to rescue them. So
Yep, and then and I always think back about that scene because there's this awful line he has where like Maeve grabs 2 little girls and she's like, "Fly these girls down." And he's like, because she's making an argument like maybe we can fly down and save people, like you can just carry people down and save them and keep coming back. And he's like, "What am I supposed to do? Like take 2 at a time?" And then she's like, "Well, take these 2 girls." And he's like, "No, why? So like they'll know that." Like we let everybody die and then they tell everybody, like we can't do that. So it's like Homelander is just, he's got no humanity whatsoever. And I also like his line about like, what am I supposed to do? Ram the plane? Like, and just like, what am I pushing off of?
Yeah, why couldn't he just hold the plane up and bring the plane down gracefully? If he is that powerful. So I never understood that whole thing there. Unless he's not, unless they're just playing to say, hey, he can't do this. He has limitations in that front. So
yeah. But yeah, I mean, Homelander is, he's a piece of work, and obviously we'll see more of that in episode 4, kind of moving forward. But yeah, not much humanity there. So
we see more A-Train recruitment, which comes back later on in the episode. Frenchie and Kimiko, they go on a mission and they see her old place where was it? My notes here, Shining Light Liberation Army Cell, where she sees an old friend, where that kind of leads to things and that kind of stuff, and her with the counseling and her having her flashbacks and that kind of stuff.
And Frenchie's like on drugs while they're like going through that like facility and everything like that. And that ends up another U-turn, but like they'll eventually like lead into that more in episode 4 that sets up some future stuff. But funny enough, like, it's basically Kimiko killing all the people, like trying to get revenge for what happened.
Yep.
So,
she takes an RPG and then gets up and keeps going.
Yeah. I mean, like, she seems unstoppable, doesn't she? I mean,
she's one of my favorite characters on the show. So, especially,
she's crazy. So,
Firecracker and Annie have a confrontation, where basically, Firecracker tells Annie why she hates her. They were on the same circuit together and all the pageant stuff, and
the most petty thing ever. Basically, I'm mad you got more like limelight than I did.
And she basically Annie bullied Firecracker and that kind of stuff. But the funniest part of this episode, before we get the funniest part, actually, it's part of the funniest part. So there's that whole meeting with Newman and Sage and Homelander about the whole assassinating Singer conversation, but Huey's there, and he's up in the rafters, and because of something, sweat falls on Homelander, I think it was.
It's like it falls either on him or right past him.
Yeah, right past him, and he kind of like notices it, and there's that whole Vought on Ice Christmas thing going on. And so Huey is trying to escape, and Homelander is trying to get him. As they're going back and forth, it's like the breakdown happens with the whole ice thing. It's like ice skates are killing people. People are getting cut, losing limbs, getting throat slits, that kind of stuff. I think like the one person that's Jesus, I think, lives. Everyone else is dead at the end of that. That's hilarious. But again, that likely ally, A-Train, saves Huey in this one. And so that's interesting.
Yeah, and I mean, if I were A-Train, like, later on, there's an argument that's made that, like, hey, you owe me A-Train. If I were A-Train, I would have just been like, hey, buddy, I've already saved your life one time, like...
Exactly.
Because, like, he basically, without that happening, he would have been killed by him.
Yep.
I mean, without a doubt. And, of course, I love that old movie premise about, like, in air ducts and movies and TV shows are always, like, massive and people can crawl through them and everything like that. So, that was really funny that they had that happen. And, it's definitely setting up this kind of thing where I think that kind of moving towards episode 4, you kind of have like Huey is ignoring his dad, right? And he's been so focused, everybody's been so focused on this. Butcher's been kind of put on the sidelines. And like when Butcher being on the sidelines, it's kind of chaos without Butcher,
Yep.
right? Like, so, like it's like, even though Mother's Milk is doing the right thing and he gets eventually A-Train to kind of become an informant for him and to work with him, it's still utter chaos.
Yep.
Like without Butcher, which, they thought that Butcher was part of the problem why everything would always go off the rails, but it's not Butcher.
Yeah.
It just always goes that way.
Yeah, it's the way things happen. And so we find out with Huey, or his mother, the reason why his parents were not together and that they still were talking on the side all these years without Huey knowing. But then the final piece of the episode is that basically Ryan is feeling sorry for Butcher and that he visited Butcher. Homelander finds out and Homelander is not happy. So again, more cracks in the foundation there between Ryan and Homelander.
And his weird obsession with milk makes him bring milkshakes for him and Ryan, and then he gets mad that he cares about Butcher and he takes Ryan's milkshake away and he's like, well, I guess 2 for me then. And walks off. So that was very interesting. And I mean, it's just one of those things where it's like Homelander's trying to force Ryan to be one way, but he just doesn't understand.
Yep.
Like Ryan's a child, and not only that, but he's showing that he's got good inside of him versus like he's not gonna. It's very weird, right? Because it's like Homelander is sort of pushing Ryan to kind of be like this kid trapped in a box, very much like how he thought he was as a child. Like, so it's we'll get into more of that in episode 4, but it seems like he's trying to force Ryan to be one way, and he loses it and does not like it when he does not act the way that he wants him to be. So.
Yeah, I put it as Homelander wants Ryan to be more Brightburn, but Ryan's turned out to be more Superman.
Mm-hmm.
So, and so that leads into episode 4, which is called Wisdom of the Ages. And I just want to say, this is probably Anthony Starr's best episode. I'd also say that this is his best season in The Boys too, as well. The way he's gone through and dealing with things. So he goes back to where he was raised, pretty much, in a laboratory. And basically starts torturing the staff that tortured him, so the one guy who kept shooting baskets while he was, with paper or trash into the paper basket while he was in the heat room testing his heat, he got him back the same way. The guy that caught him in between or after rounds, while Homelander was having a teenage moment, I'll just call it that, he makes him do the same thing in front of everybody, but then he beams that part of his body off.
I love that scene when it first starts, like when he comes down there, because it's like they think there's something wrong, and I think like they're having computer issues and like the phone lines might be down or something, and then the doors open up and it's Homelander coming off the elevator with a Carvel ice cream cake, and I was just like, as soon as I saw that cake, I was like, man, I love those ice cream cakes. And then like he's like, where's Barbara? Like, I would really like to see her. And everybody's like, oh, she's not here today. And he's like, oh, well, let's have some cake. And then later on, when she finally shows up, he's like, oh, you're going to be disappointed. The cake's melted. So like, it's so funny because it's like, he's basically tormenting all these people.
The way they tormented him, basically it's revenge. It's karma. And it's funny because then you see Barbara in his old room and everyone else is just slaughtered, but except for her. And so it's like he almost needed that to kind of move forward or kind of go to a deeper level of his further from humanity depths and kind of be that person he is.
And it's so funny, like up until this episode, I've always thought it, but nobody's ever asked it. But it's like, as a child, I get that he may be unaware of him just being able to just rip out of there and just leave. But like, at one point she makes the argument to him. She was like, you could have gotten out of here at any time, but you like were conditioned to stay here.
Yep.
So that's what kept you here, is because you believed that you had to be here. And so it's kind of like, you could have broken out, but why didn't you? if you know, if this was like, I get that you were testing the limits of your powers and everything, and you were being forced to, but at the same time, like, we technically, like, we're holding you here, but we couldn't hold you here,
Yeah,
kind of type of thing. You know,
there was no kryptonite type thing. There was no like anti Homelander thing to keep, or what was his name?
You talking about Homelander's real name?
Yeah,
John.
John. Yeah, there's no
Yeah.
anti-John thing of that time to keep him there. So you're right. They basically, it was all mental.
Yeah, and then we see that they've got like his height on the wall going all the way up to 5'10", and it's like at 15 or whatever, he's like 5'6.5", and it's like John, and then it gets all the way up to his height, and it's like when he becomes 16 years old, it's like he takes on the persona Homelander.
Yep.
You know, the Homelander. So it's like, you know, he doesn't even have a last name. He's just like kind of, and I like the name John for him because it's kind of like, it's just like a John Doe. Right?
Yeah, like a plain, yeah.
Yeah, it's just like we don't know what to name him, so just call him John kind of type of thing. But yeah, I mean, crazy episode. Like when he laser or heat visions that guy, that was absolutely insane. I love the part where he puts the guy in the oven and he misses the third blank ball, and
he would have won.
Yeah, you probably would have won. Like, you know. So yeah, and I mean, like, that's just kind of one of those things. Like, I think when he leaves in that, like, later on, I think they show the cake one more time, and the cake is just absolutely belted, you know? And it's kind of like, I feel like the cake kind of represents what's going on there, right? Like, everything's in order when he first shows up, but when the cake kind of is melted and falling apart, so is everybody there.
Yep.
So
it's kind of like the nice parallel there. So
yeah, exactly. But that scene, man, when he comes in with that cake, that is just one of the funniest scenes to me, because it's like, you know, you got this bulldozer of a character, and he just comes in with this little Carvel ice cream cake, and he's like, it's a whale, like, you know. So yeah, I mean it, and I think that was going to be where they may have made maybe Temp V, or maybe a couple of other things, that little lab.
Yeah.
You know, it seems like that was where they were doing a lot of experiments. I know that there's a mention that John is like Project Odessa or something like that, and that was what he was. I mean, they basically started that work on him in the 80s, and there's this killer scene in the comics that they reference, which is, Barbara says to him, when you were born, you basically came out and like murdered everybody with your heat vision. And that's an actual like scene of him as a baby in the comics, where like he's like still like, you know, just a fresh born baby, and he's just like lasering everybody.
And that goes back to season 1 or 2, where they were in the nursery and they were holding the babies up, and they were beaming people with the babies.
Yeah. I mean, that was a very, like, you know, Homelander moment. So and that was so funny when Butcher was just like, you know, trying to get the baby to work, like, come on, use it, fire, come on, you know. But yeah, so I think like that scene is kind of like Homelander killing, he's like looking at himself in the mirror before all that happens, and he's like telling himself that if he goes there and kills all those people, it's like killing his old self and allowing him to become something new.
Yep.
Basically. So very, very terrifying for him.
Yeah.
You know, or not for him, but for us watching him, because it seems like he's just like, he is going down into the pit of despair. So he's like losing his mind, basically. So.
And speaking of losing their minds, so Annie goes back to Singer to kind of help kill that Soups in any kind of government or military type thing, and has the backing. But then we find out that Firecracker is putting on a big show, and to kind of stop the big show, Firecracker, the Mother's Milk and Butcher find out some very compromising video or information of Firecracker when she was at a camp with a younger person. But instead of being terrified of it, Firecracker's like, I don't care, release it, and then like basically puts it out to the world, comes in with an apology, you know, more parallels to stuff they're doing today, comes in with apology and asks for forgiveness, and they all forgive her, but then goes to reveal some things about Annie, specifically Annie and Huey, which I don't remember this from the past seasons, about that she was pregnant with a baby.
Yeah, I think
So
that was like something that happened off screen.
okay,
But, yeah, you know, like I'm gonna be honest with you, that reversal that she made against Starlight still did not seem as bad as what she
yeah,
did.
she did
Right?
exactly.
So I was like,
It,
what? Like, and everybody's just like,
yeah,
oh yeah, like, oh, she's terrible. Like,
it just shows you how brainwashed people can get with when they have a certain type of person they follow, to
yeah.
where they'll believe anything they say and forget anything they do. And but other people doing stuff is so much worse. And that's where Annie just loses it, which I'm kind of confused here, right? With the whole abortion thing, not because it wasn't in the past seasons, not because there's an abortion that happened. Why didn't they have the baby? Because that would have been the second naturally born Soup outside of Ryan. Because
Well,
given that it's Annie and Huey's baby, it's the same situation as Homelander and Becca.
well, here's the thing, right? Like,
As far as having a natural born Soup, nothing else is similar.
well,
That's the one portion I'm saying.
assuming that the child would have been a Soup, right? Like,
Yeah, it would have been a Soup, but
but like, here's the thing: this show, this is the one thing I hate, is the original belief was like once you were a Soup, you were basically sterile and you couldn't have children, right? Like, done. But then the show kind of went against itself because we saw Translucent had a son.
Yes.
Earlier on, and then when he died, we saw his like 17-year-old son at his funeral or whatever, you know.
But he
So
wasn't a
it's
Soup though, right?
no, but he was in Gen V, I thought, and was supposed to be the invisible guy. That was,
Oh,
like, in the
that's right.
comics.
So Ryan is not the first natural born Soup. That I'm sorry. Yeah, I forgot all about that Translucent son.
Assuming that maybe he wasn't born a Soup, but maybe he took the compound
Yeah,
V and had
yeah.
the same powers or whatever. But regardless, this show, like, you know, we know Ryan is like the first natural born Soup, is in, like, you know, he literally, like, in the womb, like, I think Becca saw her stomach was lighting up with like red eyes, right? Because it was like the heat vision or whatever. But which absolutely terrifying. I couldn't imagine being pregnant with a baby and seeing that, you know, like, that would be absolutely terrifying. But yeah, I mean, like, I think that this show kind of does this where it goes back and forth. Like, I think the comics, I think Queen Maeve had a baby at one point in the comics, but, you know, we've seen people in the show have children that are Soups, but it seemed like Starlight was going to have one. We don't know if it was a natural born Soup, but I mean, it would have been interesting to find that out. Like, you know,
So I like your theory though. I think Translucent was not a natural born Soup, and then he got Compound V, and because he had that DNA, he had the same traits as his dad. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, and I mean, like, that's where I kind of thought, like, it sounds kind of weird, but it's like genetics, right? Like, you kind of inherit a lot of your genetics from your parents. So, like, I thought when Newman gave her daughter, like, Compound V, she would have
the
very
same,
similar powers. Not maybe the same, but similar, you know? They are not similar. They seem very different, you know? And I think, like, with, you know, we saw in Gen V, the dude, Andre, he had the magnetism powers. His father had the magnetism powers.
Yeah.
So, like, very similar. We see Homelander and his son Ryan have similar powers. So that's where I'm kind of like, you know, I think that, like, it would be similar, but not necessarily the same. So who knows?
Yeah.
Maybe it would have been interesting if, like, that baby would have been something that came after Huey was using the Temp V and she was using the Compound V, and or she had been, you know, injected with the Compound V. So, you know, that would have been really interesting if that baby would have been, I guess, a product of that. You know?
Yes.
So
even if the baby came out with no powers, they would still have the DNA to where it could be like Translucent Son, where he could have had you know. I'm going to go ahead and say that if you're a Soup that has a baby with a non-Soup, that there's a high probability if that child gets injected with Compound V, if they're not natural born Soup like Ryan, if they get injected with Compound V, there's probably a high probability they're going to have similar powers to the parent that had powers, is my guess. Because so far, aside from Newman's daughter, everyone else is pretty much the same. It's very similar to their parents. So I'll go with that. But yeah, that kind of played me out because you're looking for a deterrent, you know, for Homelander, for more powerful Soups. Why not roll the dice with Annie and Huey and have an offspring, especially what they knew with Ryan? That's where I'm confused in the whole situation.
Well, I mean, like, I think the biggest problem there is like, you know, the child, it would take 18 years for
yeah.
the child or 15 or whatever, like Ryan had been. It was funny with the stuff with Ryan. It was like nobody knew. Butcher thought Becca was alive, but Homelander didn't know that Becca and Ryan were alive. And then suddenly it was like, hey, there's like this 9, 10, 11, 12-year-old boy that's been off the grid with Vought taking care of him and the mother, and that is just been hidden all this time. And I think that's kind of like how we end up with that. But yeah, unfortunately, I mean, I don't think we already know this show's not going to go past season 5. Is what they're talking about now. So there's no point in trying to do that, I think.
So Andy pretty much beats the living snot out of Firecracker. And because that happens on live TV, everyone sees it. That pretty much kills the bill that Singer was proposing, and looks like that bill's going to go the opposite way because of that. And now basically Annie's on the outs with Singer.
And it paints a picture, right? Like Sister Sage just set up this plan where she was trying to make the Starlighters look like they were bad, and that Starlight is basically like the ringleader of the Starlighters.
Yep.
Like she is evil, and she's turning all these people like bad and making them do bad things. Oh, they killed Homelander supporters, like, oh, but now it's like on live TV, it was a trap for Annie. She loses it. She shows up. She beats Firecracker up.
Well, you even saw her allies in the HQ. The looks they were giving her once that went live with Firecracker as well. So you already saw the seeds of distrust in the Starlighters.
Yep. So it's one of those things that at the end of that, it's kind of like, oh man, like I fell prey to their trap basically. And this is, I mean, you couldn't have asked for, honestly, I think a better, if you're trying to frame somebody as like being a bad person and then they show up on live TV and then beat the mess out of somebody, it's obviously going to be like, okay, like, she's in the wrong here. Like she shouldn't have done that. And now that got aired, it's public, and Annie kind of has to run and with her tail between her legs, because like it's kind of like, oh man, like I've kind of fallen prey. Like you mentioned, Singer's kind of like, don't ever contact me again, stay away from me, I don't want to hear from you anymore, you've done exactly. And it basically paints a picture like Homelander's good, right? Like, and that's like where this is ultimately going, where it was like Homelander versus Starlight, but now it's like, okay, now it's like Starlight's being seen as evil, and Homelander, he's been acquitted at trial, he's all good, and he's not being convicted. And I mean, Sister Sage's plan seems like it's moving in motion so far.
But what we've seen from this too, at the end of the last episode with Sister Sage, it seems like she can give herself a temporary lobotomy to kind of drop her intellect and her inhibitions, and we see her and the Deep have relations. I first thought that what she was feeding him was the squid or the octopus, but it was not. It was just blooming onion. It was just food that he likes to eat. And so we see that, and so we saw that she does things and that she can heal too pretty quickly. But has to do things to make her feel normal and have normal interactions with people. But back to this episode. So we see that during this time that Frenchie is looking into the trailer that is Firecrackers, and he has an encounter with Ezekiel, the pastor dude that, or the cult religion dude that Annie was a part of when she was younger, as he was after saying more bad things about Annie. But
I just gotta throw this out there real quick. I love that part on TV where he's like, what is Starlight? That's 9 letters. What is that upside down? That's 6. What is, Annie, January, all that 666.
Yeah.
Like, that was just so funny. Like, wow. And everybody's like, oh, in the background, like it was just so crazy. So I thought that part was so funny.
So him and Frenchie get into it. He takes out Frenchie. Him and Homelander get into it. And I think last episode we first saw the worm in Homelander's brain that was moving around, kind of things up there. We didn't know what that meant. We thought it was part of his whole thing about the Temp V and that kind of stuff. But he gets into it with Ezekiel. He blacks out, but then he wakes up. Ezekiel's in pieces. So whatever that worm is, whatever's going on with Butcher and his stuff, he has powers still. Is just more of a defense mechanism. And that's where I was like, it's a Venom-like quality, because what does Venom do with
protect the host?
Brock, he protects the host, right? And so, with Eddie Brock. Yeah.
I love that scene, that fight at first, because he tries to stretch and he pulls out the fire extinguisher and freezes his arm and breaks it. I was just like, man, because like I think that's what I've always liked about the boys, is because when they're fighting people that I'm just gonna say are super able, capable of using their powers, they always find funny ways to like take them down,
disable them.
Right? Yeah. So like with that one, that was like spot on. But then like when we see basically him being strangled, you see Becca appears.
Yep.
And she's like, you need to keep going, you need to keep fighting, and you see that thing slithering around his head and his forehead and everything. And at first I always thought, like when they first showed it, I was like, like some people have like a vein in their forehead or something. That's what I thought it was at first, but obviously we know now that's not what that is. And we saw it in the shower. It slithered up when he was in the shower in that one scene.
Yep.
And we find out later on in the episode that he admits to Huey, when he finds out Huey had the compound V, that he took compound.
Yep.
And he claims that the only thing it did was move up his expiration date.
Was it compound V or was it more temp V?
No, I think it was compound V.
Okay, I can remember. Yeah.
Because he said he got some, because like I think like they had a vial of the compound V or something Frenchie did, and there was like a little bit, and he like took some and injected himself with it. And because I think the temp V was green and the compound V is blue. So like he was like, and it didn't do anything. But I think what we're gonna find out is him taking that compound V actually gave him other powers.
Yes, and he doesn't know yet. He's now just finding out about. So
yep, and it's that thing slithering around in his body. And I don't know if the hallucinations are a side effect of the temp V or the compound V.
Or it's a new thing that it's a new, exactly. So speaking of the compound V, we said Huey has some. Again, A-Train helping Huey out. But we see when A-Train goes to look for it, first he finds the stash of hair. He finds a bottle from what's her name from earlier seasons,
Madeline Stillwell.
Yeah, from Stillwell. Yeah. And then he opens one of the drawers up, and it's just full of baby milk, breast milk. And he's like, "What the heck?" And then he finds the drawer of compound V, and we see there's not a lot left in there either. So what's he been doing with that compound V as well?
Yeah, and he says to Huey at one point, "Oh, Homelander's got all that locked up in his apartment now."
Yeah.
So it seems like Homelander's kind of keeping that stuff tight and under wraps, which makes me believe that they're not really making new soups at this time. But
we saw a bunch of slots empty though.
Yeah, that's true.
So I wonder what's going on still. Because remember, at one point, A-Train was running Compound V for Homelander. That's how he killed Huey's girlfriend.
And it tears my OCD apart how they just randomly grab ones out of there, like just start at one side, go all the way down. But and that's where we see Ashley, and we find out she was using Homelander's bathroom and everything. And A-Train's like, "Oh, it seems like we've reached a predicament here, like we're both in a situation where we shouldn't be here, and we would both be killed if we were to know this." So I think that sets up that Ashley is like, "Well, I'm pretty powerless here, so I'm just going to do the most petty thing I can to get back at Homelander."
So this is where I wonder if where A-Train can kind of cross Ashley, and when it comes to find out there's a person that's been helping out, it ends up being Ashley. That's why I wonder. One of them is going to get outed. I think it might be Ashley.
That's going to be one of those moments where A-Train is going to basically have Homelander like in front of him, and he's going to be posing the question, "Who here is the rat?" And then he's going to like bring Ashley's computer and find that saved document or something on there and be like, "Hey, well, she made this letter," and he's like, "Oh, so is you," and then he'll just kill Ashley. Or something,
he'll play I-beam right there.
Yeah, so.
So then we find out that he gets the compound V for Huey's dad. We see Huey at the hospital. Huey has second thoughts, but then we see the blue stuff in the IV. Well, his mom shows up. Huey goes to get coffee, I believe, and brings back coffee, and we see that there's the blue stuff in the vial. And this is where it thinks if Huey's hallucinating like Homelander is, this makes me feel like that Huey is more of a Fight Club moment where he's blacking out or seeing himself do stuff, but he's doing something else, kind of like the whole Fight Club situation with Tyler and Cornelius, whatever his name is. But between those two, I think that's what might be happening. But then we see his dad wake up, and that's the end of the episode. So,
yep. And I think that, and I could be wrong, but I swear that she mentioned at some point in the episode that she worked for Vought at some
Yes,
point.
some kind of like health type thing. So
Yeah, it's like a
skin regimen
makeup
or
or health or something, some health and wellness kind of type thing for Vought. And, we've seen this kind of stuff explored before. I know in the show Diabolical, they had that one episode that was the cream that you would rub yourself with, and then you would have powers and stuff. So, I think that she comes in with some compound V and she injects it into him. So it's like Huey goes in, he's got it in his pocket, and then just is like, oh, I'm not going to do it, and then leaves and comes back.
That's a great point, because you're right, because he didn't leave the compound V in the room, I don't think. He took it it was in his pocket, so she had it as so
I think it, which is really weird, because I think earlier on in that episode, right, they're talking to the doctor, and it's another one of those weird moments where it's like, is she actually there or not? Because the doctor's talking to Huey, but the doctor never turns and looks at the mother. But the mother is like drinking, or she takes a cup from Huey at some point. So it's like, okay, he brings 2 cups in, and then she takes one and starts drinking. So I think she's alive. But then, like, it's like, I think they're trying to make you question, is she real or not?
Yeah.
But I think that she actually brought Compound V, put it in his IV drip, and then it gives him powers.
And this is where I think, this is why I keep thinking about Fight Club between those two, where it's more than just Butcher having hallucinations. I think it's actually Huey doing stuff and not realize he's doing stuff, and using his mom as the grief mechanism.
Mm-hmm.
Or as that mechanism to get through it or do things and that kind of stuff, to make himself, that kind of thing. And so, because his dad was pretty much off life support, they were just waiting basically for the feeding to run out and go from there. So yeah,
I was waiting.
It could be a grieving thing too. It could be a grieving thing also with Huey right now.
I was like, please don't have it happen where, like, as soon as I saw the blue like going through the IV and everything like that, and he opens up his eyes, I was like, please don't like turn to like heat vision, right? Like where it's like everybody that's just in close proximity to Homelander that's a threat just ends up developing very similar powers to Homelander. So because like that's what happened to Butcher when he took the 10th V, right? Like he had Homelander powers.
Yep.
So now it seems like his powers are going to be different. So it's going to be interesting seeing what they do with next week's episode. I would think they're not going to leave us on that cliffhanger, right? Unless they tell us what his powers are and what happens to him. I'm sure he's going to get up and be like, I'm feeling like a brand new man, like all that kind of stuff. So
if these episode titles are right, next week for episode 5, it's Beware the Jabberwock, My Son. So it sounds like we are going to either have a Ryan Homelander episode or Huey and his dad episode. Mm-hmm. Dirty Business is episode 6. Episode 7 is The Insider. And this is where you find out probably either about A-Train or Ashley's or both the fate. And then 8 is Assassination Run, which I think will be the end of the campaign. Not Singer, but whoever, who's Newman running with?
Robert Singer.
Oh, Singer. Okay. So Singer is the president at this time. They won the election, and maybe this is where they go to either assassinate Newman, or Singer is going to, or try to stop Newman from assassinating Singer.
So it's really cool, but I think we might have a moment where it's like he's president, Newman takes over, she kills Singer, and then we're going to have one of those moments where Homelander is going to storm the White House for Newman because she's not going to do what Homelander wants her to do, or what he wants her to do, and then we're going to have that final moment where it's like, hey, who can kill who, maybe.
Yep.
Which will be really interesting. So I'm hoping we have something like that happen, and then of course Ryan comes in and stops it all. But yeah, I mean, it seems like this is it's spiraling out of control quite a bit. I don't know how many episodes we have in this season. What is it?
I think 10? It's 8. I think it's 8.
Okay.
It might be 10. I'm not sure. I was typing, looking up real quick. But yeah, I want to forget that I haven't read all the boys stuff. I've seen bits and pieces of the comics. I need to go read the boys comics from the beginning. But it seems like we might get that iconic shot of Butcher on the White House lawn.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and they're so much more brutal than this show can be sometimes. Like, honestly, like, and like, instead of, like, I'll give you an example. Like, I always use this as an example, but Lamplighter in the show, right? Like, he just kind of stepped out of the limelight and went and was like helping in an insane asylum and everything like that. But in the comics, he like was like killed, and then they like injected him with the V, and then all of a sudden he was like a zombie, and like Starlight had to like clean his poop. That was like the first thing, like, yeah, like, because they kept him trapped in a room like in the basement. Vought, basically. So her job at first was just to keep him like clean and everything like that. And yeah, I mean, they've definitely made a lot of changes to the show, but the comics are pretty gruesome at times and stuff, right? And so I don't think you can really telegraph where this is going to go 100% anymore. It seems like we kind of got some ideas of where it most likely will go, but this season it seems like we are in for one hell of a ride moving forward.
So, we're getting on to the news now. So that's all our boys talk. So I'll start with the boys news. If you're not aware, the episodes get released at 12 a.m. Pacific, 3 a.m. Eastern time on Thursdays. The biggest news though for the boys though, or two things, that it's gonna look like it's gonna end with season 5. So we're gonna have one more season left after this one. But Jared Padalecki looks like he's possibly joining the cast for next season as well.
Mm-hmm.
Another supernatural tie.
Yep, another supernatural tie. I don't know who he'll be. I know there's been talks that he might be Vikor, I think is his name. He's like a Thor kind of like, he's like a Scandinavian kind of type character. That's got some like Stormfront ties in the comics. He's like
the children of Stormfront, I think they're called, or something like that.
Yeah, but it's weird. They're not actually like children of Stormfront. They're just
like one of those
people.
groups.
Yeah, it's marketed that way. It's like how, like, basically this person had all these superpowered children. It's like that whole like divine lineage almost like thing that they kind of push with Vought and everything. So of course in the comics he's more of like an informant. I think at one point Butcher actually grabs him and throws him in an oven, and he like loses an eye. So it's very much like Odin, kind of type of thing.
Odin and Thor.
yeah, Odin and Thor.
There's also they have a thing, they're making fun of the Infinity Gauntlet, I believe, called the Eternity Gauntlet that he has, and he's found doing some very revealing terrible things with it, and he made fun of for that. So yeah, I hope they make him Vikor next season. That would just fit in. And if they do the whole Eternity Gauntlet thing, that would just be even better.
It's honestly almost about as bad as Tech Knight,
Yeah,
like, Tech Knight
trees, or not the trees, but this holes.
Yeah, he was all about some holes now.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that'll be interesting. I like Jared. I feel like moving forward with the supernatural characters, it's great seeing them in the show. But Jeffrey Dean Morgan, I love that actor. I really hope that they don't just I feel like he could have done more if they just make him like a hallucination or don't do something with him. I'm not going to be disappointed, but he could have been so much more, I think, as a soup or something in the show.
What if he is what manifests from Butcher when Butcher blacks out?
Yeah. I mean
that's part of his power, maybe.
That maybe Becca and Kessler, maybe that's part of the worm. I don't know if that's like the thing slithering around inside of him that's like, making hallucinations. It's actually the worm trying to control him. The thing
like using parts of his like memory from his brain since he's up there doing stuff, but then like Becca's like the conscious and Kessler's like the brawn, maybe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so, I mean, it makes me think of like that one scene where he kills Ezekiel and then he wakes up and he's just covered in blood and his body parts are everywhere, and it's like, oh man, it makes me think of. I don't think you've seen it, but there is a season of American Horror Story. It's the 5th season. There is a serial killer in the show. And spoiler alert, anybody who hasn't seen the season, but the whole season is about a cop that thinks he's hunting down a serial killer, only to find out in the final few episodes that he's actually the serial killer. And it's like a split personality thing where he like lost his son, and through the grief, he like blacks out and is committing these atrocities and doesn't realize that he's the one that's so the guy that he's been chasing is himself. So like, it's very crazy, and he ends up becoming like a crazy serial killer in the show and everything like that. Ironically named John, but I don't know what it is with those Johns, I guess, but yeah, so it feels very similar to that with me. So
cool. Well, let's move on to the other news now. We actually had a pretty good long episode today, kind of stepping through those first 4 episodes, and now we're just now getting to the news. So Avengers 5 news. Via the Hollywood Reporter, Marvel Studios offered Sean Levy the position of Avengers 5 director. It in March of this year, but he turned it down due to scheduling issues. So, but the studio has since pushed back the movie's production timeline, leaving the door open for Levy to direct. It sounds like if they're already offering Avengers 5, that they are very impressed with Deadpool and Wolverine.
Mm-hmm.
Before it releases, so
it kind of will play into Secret Wars, right? It's kind of like a prequel event. I wouldn't really call it.
But Avengers 5 will be it won't be Secret Wars though.
It'll be like a Kang Dynasty,
whatever they call it. Yeah,
whatever they make that movie name. But I mean, that's going to be like the part 1 that kind of leads up to a Secret Wars.
Yeah, and they can make it a part 2 thing too as well.
Yeah, so that'll be interesting.
Via deadline, Avengers 5 is expected to have 60 returning MCU characters.
How many?
60.
Oh man, that's a lot.
So this does sound like a huge event.
Mm-hmm. That's a lot of screen time.
And that could be why Levy, because of all the stuff they're doing with all the with the Void and all the characters and that kind of stuff. Maybe they saw that he can do that very well, and that's why they're doing it with him, or they want to.
The Deadpool and Wolverine movie probably has a really good balancing act with all those characters, and that's probably what they liked. So
it's still unclear if Kang will be the villain of Avengers 5 or if the film will feature multiple antagonists. So also via Cosmic Circus, Loki and Sylvie are expected to feature in Avengers 5 and Avengers Secret Wars. So Jordan Peele, via Jeff Snyder, Jordan Peele reportedly met with Marvel Studios to discuss an upcoming film. It is rumored to be one of the following projects: Ghost Rider, Midnight Suns, Spider-Man 4, Avengers 5. Honestly, if you're going to give Peele a movie, I would do Midnight Suns or Avengers 5. Possibly Ghost Rider. I don't see him doing Spider-Man 4.
I don't think that's the right choice for him.
Yeah,
Spider-Man movie.
I think Midnight Suns would be an awesome one for him to do. Ghost Rider, he could probably do. Avengers 5, possibly, depending on what they're doing. Like if they come in with the Beyonder for Avengers 5, like say they make the Beyonder the villain, like somehow the defeat of Kang allows the Beyonder to emerge, and if it's the Beyonder and they do some kind of weird freaky stuff, I think Jordan Peele will be a great person to do Avengers 5.
I just hope that they don't try and ram Doom in there and make Doom you know, like they need to leave that alone and let that kind of naturally kind of flourish on its own. But yeah, I don't know if I like him for a Ghost Rider thing. He was the one that did that movie Nope, right?
Yep. He did Nope. He did what else did he do? He's in a lot of films. Like he did Get Out. He did
Get Out.
Yeah. That's was Nope the one with M'Baku?
I don't remember.
No, Nope was the space one.
The space flying jellyfish alien thing.
He did the other one too. That was with Winston Duke and what's her name? They're both in Black Panther. They're in the other Us. He did Us as well, which that was a pretty good film. So, yeah, I could see him doing one of those films. I don't think Spider-Man 4 is his thing unless he changes some things up, unless they go with, I don't know. I just don't see it.
Yeah, he probably wouldn't do a bad job with Midnight Suns, but I mean, to kind of discuss Midnight Suns, I feel like we're putting the cart before the horse here, right? Like, we need to kind of get a lot of characters and stuff kind of moving forward.
Do we, though? Could we do Midnight Suns first and then do the films after, kind of do a reverse Avengers type thing, where we've already seen Werewolf by Night, we've already seen Elsa Bloodstone, we've already seen Man-Thing, Wong could be the glue for them, and then, that's where we see, like, oh, Moon Knight's already been done, so do a Midnight Suns where it introduces Ghost Rider, Blade, maybe a couple others, and then do their solo films.
I feel like I would love to see Ghost Rider in anything, and I will take Ghost Rider in anything, whichever version they use, but I would love to see a project before Midnight Suns of Ghost Rider, so
you might get that.
Yeah, so hopefully that would happen. I don't know if he's the right choice for that. I'm not saying he's the wrong choice. I think the Ghost Rider project is going to be something that's kind of hard, because although it's like I like the CGI in that second Nick Cage movie, and I like some of the story in the first one, those movies were never really that great, and they could have been so much better.
Yeah.
And I feel like they kind of using the guys, I think that they worked on Crank that made the Spirit of Vengeance, the second one. They did such a weird job with that movie. It's got some cool
He's a Shield. Robbie Reyes, they did an awesome job with him.
That is honestly the best part of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. is that one season, you know? So, yeah, I mean, we could have so many different Ghost Riders, and I don't think we should be limited to one in the MCU, right? Like, I think there should have been more than one, maybe past, present, future kind of type of deal or something like that. But, yeah, I don't know if they're going to go with Blaze. I'm hoping they go with Ketch. That's who I just want, but... You know, I know there's been rumors that Gosling might take over.
Here we go. The next piece right here. Ghost Rider news. Mm-hmm. According to Rejected Scooper, Ryan Gosling will be portraying Ghost Rider. So is he going to be Ketch or is he going to be Blaze? Now, the Fall Guy stuff that I've seen from him makes me think he could be a good Blaze, but I know you want him to be Ketch.
Yeah, I want him to be Ketch. And I mean, I just think of that scene from the Barbie movie where I'm just Ken, I'm just Ketch. You know, like that's all I think of.
Do a spoof of that dance.
yeah. But you know, obviously I want him to take that seriously. But I don't know why. I mean, he could honestly be Blaze. He could be Ketch. I just feel like with the Nick Cage movies, we already got Blaze. Yes, we should definitely have somebody play Blaze a little bit better. But you know, I remember a time when people were like making the remark that Nick Cage might come back as Johnny Blaze at one point. And I'm like, please don't have him pop up in a cameo.
They could bring what's his name back for the caretaker, Sam Elliott. I like him. They could bring him back anytime for anything. But yeah, I get it.
Mm-hmm.
And then more stuff Midnight Suns related. Blade. According to Variety, Eric Pearson has taken over screenwriting duties for Blade following Logan writer Michael Green, among others, in that task. Eric Pearson worked on Black Widow and Thor Ragnarok. According to the trade report, the powers that be at the studio see Pearson as a closer who can bring scripts over the finish line. Now, there is some stuff here about Blade. It's not the studio's fault. It's not solely the studio's fault. It's not solely the actor's fault, but there's some things here that bring some more light to why Blade is where it's at today. But some good news though, Mia Goth is still slated to play Lilith, via the Hollywood Reporter. Delroy Lindo is no longer attached to the project. The latest version is said to be in present day, so it's no longer a period piece. The plan is reportedly for the script to be written over the summer and then go out to the directors. Now, the reason why there was some issues with Blade is part of Mahershala Ali's fault. Because he exercised a lot of influence over the project and wanted Blade to be his Black Panther. Now, anyone who knows about Blade and Black Panther knows they're not comparable. You're not going to have the same impact or influence that Chadwick Boseman had in the MCU with Black Panther. There's no way. You know, there's no Wakanda for Blade, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't see why he wanted to do that. And that seems like it was part of the problem, was that he wanted this to be a huge thing where they need to build Blade up and use Blade, you know, very strategically across the MCU, not be a cornerstone character like Black Panther. He also conducted his own search for directors after having concerns over Marvel's list of directors. A lot of people came on board and left were Ali's picks. So there you go. Also the pandemic, that kind of stuff, timing. So this is basically a big issue across the board. No one person is left to blame or no one studio, but it's a culmination of issues. And you see that Ali played his part in that as well, along with Marvel Studios, the pandemic, scheduling, all that kind of stuff.
And it's so crazy to me because it's like back with the original Blade trilogy with Snipes, it's like from 98 to I think it was 2004, we got a trilogy, right? Mm-hmm. And here we are 5 years in, it's 2024. They announced Ali back in 2019 being Blade. We still don't even have the first Blade movie. So it's like we are almost sitting at the point now where by the time we get maybe the first movie, it will basically be the same amount of time as the original trilogy that came out.
And that's my point. Do Midnight Suns first and then do Blade after.
Mm-hmm.
You already got most of the team already in the MCU. And speaking of Midnight Suns, I'm kind of tying all these things together with this project, the MonsterVerse here of Marvel. Via Alex from Cosmic Circus, the Midnight Suns will have around 6 to 9 members. The lineup could consist of Doctor Strange, which I don't know if he'll be too busy with other stuff, and you might want to just have Wong and not both. But Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Blade, Moon Knight, Wong, Agatha, Scarlet Scarab, Elsa Bloodstone, Man-Thing, and Warwick by Night. Now, it said Man-Things, but I don't know if that was a typo. Because he's a Nexus being, so it's only one of him. And so, yeah. But I like that lineup. I don't think you need both Wong and Doctor Strange. Let Wong lead this one and let Doctor Strange kind of go off and do Doctor Strange 3 in the next Avengers movie. I like the lineup. So
I'm just hoping. I know, like, it seemed like Moon Knight had quite a bit more story to tell when they finished that show.
Yep.
I don't know if we're ever going to get a season 2 for that. Have they talked about it at all? Or...
There's been some rumblings of it. I know that Oscar Isaac wants to do it instead of the writers and directors, so we'll see what happens.
Yeah, but I would like to see another season of that before Midnight Suns event, and then it just kind of lead into that, you know? I think that was awesome.
Get more of Jake.
Yeah, Jake Walkley.
So Michael Green, who's the writer of Blade Runner 2049 and creator of Netflix's Blue-Eyed Samurai, is set to write the Midnight Suns project. Green has also worked on Green Lantern, Logan, Blade, Smallville, and Heroes. So he has the chops for the assemble stuff. And
Heroes was so good.
Yeah, and Smallville, Blade, previous Blade stuff, Logan, Green Lantern, but still. But yeah, so I think he's in a good spot there with that.
I'm going to say something that's going to shock a lot of people. I have still not finished Smallville. I have tried my hardest. I never watched it when it came out, and I think I made it to the 4th or 5th season, and I just got bored because I find Superman so uninteresting.
It did get corny too in some parts of Smallville, and it's kind of hard to sit through, so I get it. Deadpool Wolverine news. According to Ryan Reynolds' social media, it has wrapped post-production, so it's done. Now it's just waiting for. It's also approved to be released in China as well. Okay. So it's ready to go. Venom: The Last Dance. We have a synopsis. In Venom: The Last Dance, Tom Hardy returns as Venom, one of Marvel's greatest and most complex characters, for the final film in the trilogy. Eddie and Venom are on the run, hunted by both third worlds, and with the net closing in, the duo are forced into a devastating decision that will bring curtains down on Venom and Eddie's last dance. And you see, it looks like Venom's people are coming for them as well from the latest trailer. So that looks interesting. Evangeline Lilly has announced that she is stepping away from acting. So we are losing Hope Van Dyne, the Wasp. I don't know if they recast her. Is she going to be if that character's going to be other projects, or they're going to focus on Cassie and Ant-Man. And Scott Lang. So we'll see about that one.
I felt like Quantumania didn't really do her that well. You know what I'm saying? Like she felt like she was just kind of like a background character more in that movie for some reason. So
it was more about Scott and Cassie, and I think that might be the direction going forward, especially with her stepping away.
Yeah.
Loki news. Via backstage, Tom Hiddleston confirms that he will continue to play Loki for a little longer. Loki is kind of a magnificent torch that I hold in my hands at the moment, and that I want to keep burning as brightly as possible before I pass it on to future generations. So, we talked about Blade, Midnight Suns, Wonder Man, via Deadline, is confirmed to be a 10-episode series. So, look, Marvel's doing more, breaking the mold of 6-episode series. Kang news. Via Alex from Cosmic Circus says he has heard that they want to focus on other multiversal villains before dealing with Kang again. Beyonder, He also says, I really don't think Doom will be the main villain in this saga. Given the little time we have to build him up, it would be a disservice to us, to the character, and quite frankly, a waste. Doom deserves more than one movie to set him up in post-credit scene, and then be big bad for 2 movies, and then be done with him. Plus, I've heard they're treating Doom similar to how they've handled Loki in the Infinity Saga. So there you go.
Good.
Via Cryptic 4K Qual, Marvel Studios and Sony reportedly had talks about Miguel O'Hara forming an alliance with Kang variant in the MCU. It would have featured Kang getting power and Miguel getting stability. Plans fell through as Sony thought it was a huge ask. That would be interesting because, you have the Spider-Verse in, the multiverse, and then coming together would be interesting. So,
I feel like that was like their attempt to kind of wedge everything that's happening in the Sony movies into the MCU too.
Yeah.
You know.
Fantastic Four movies via Daniel RPK. The Fantastic Four movie would probably be set in outer space, which is no surprise there. Do a Lost in Space type of thing with them. That's fine. Your Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man via Screen Rant. It will release on November 2nd on Disney Plus. I don't know how much truth this is though, but there's rumblings out there that Vinny D was a Vincent D. Onofrio will return as Kingpin to voice him, and that Charlie Cox will return as Daredevil to voice him as well. I don't know how true that is, but that's out there being talked about a lot.
Interesting.
Brave New World. The Russo brothers are reportedly producing the film. That's interesting. So there was some stuff out there that showed who was tied to the film, and they are listed as producers.
Interesting.
Yep. Miles Morales news via Jeff Snyder. Sony is reportedly casting for Miles Morales in an upcoming live-action Spider-Man film. I'm telling you, beyond the Spider-Verse, he's going to cross over to live-action. I'm telling you, one of the universes that he's going to pop out and end up in will be live-action. I'm calling it now.
Yeah.
Earlier you mentioned Taylor Swift. So there's some Blonde Phantom news. Via Daniel RPK, Marvel Studios is reportedly seeking a showrunner for their upcoming Blonde Phantom series. Taylor Swift and Sydney Sweeney were previously rumored to be considered for the lead role. So there you go.
That's so weird though to consider Sydney Sweeney because we just saw her in that Phantom Web movie, right?
What movie?
So Matt, yeah, Madam Web. What about that movie?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I guess that's fine. I mean, but if they would have done that, I felt like that would have been weird if they tried to wedge a lot of the Sony stuff into the MCU. But
yeah,
we've got our problems with the Sony verse, as I'll call it. I mean, they seem to get Spider-Man right, But
that's
like,
it.
No
that's
one else. Yeah, nothing else.
Miles Morales, Spider-Man, Miles Morales, all that kind of stuff. Spider-Verse, all that kind of stuff.
Parker
Peter Parker
and Miles Morales.
Peter Parker twice.
Well. Yeah. So it's like, they can do that, but the rest of it, man, they struggle. So, I mean, I don't know, like Taylor Swift, like I know a lot of people were set on her being Dazzler. Obviously, that's very...
or Lady Deadpool.
Yeah, I hope that doesn't happen. I'm still kind of hoping that's Blake Lively, that's the Lady Deadpool. That would just be funny with Ryan Reynolds, So hopefully that happens if that's the thing. But yeah, who knows? I'll be really curious to see what they do going forward with that. So.
The Penguin. I think the Penguin trailer's out. I thought it was someone posted. I haven't seen it myself. I thought someone posted it in our DC group, but I haven't looked at it.
I don't think I've seen it either. I need to check that out. Yeah.
But according to the HBO CEO, it will stream in September.
Okay.
So, Creature Commandos will stream in December, and this is via the Agency International Animation Film Festival.
Okay.
Superman, via THR, the Hollywood Reporter, Beck Bennett has been cast as the notable reporter at the Daily Planet.
Okay.
Didn't say who, but it says, as one of them. The Lanterns Project is eyeing a shoot in Q1 of 2025 in the UK. DC is searching for a Hal Jordan between 43 to 49 years old and a Jon Stewart between 27 to 35 years old.
Man, I'm so happy to see Jon Stewart finally get some limelight, not that I know that he was supposed to be they kind of had that hint that he was going to eventually be like in the Snyder movies and the Snyderverse and stuff like that. But after the Snyder Cut came out, but it's like Jon Stewart is an awesome Green Lantern, and I'm not a big Hal Jordan fan, but it is what it is. We've still got Guy Gardner that's going to make his appearance in that Superman movie, so I feel like that's going to kind of set up some of the Lantern stuff since it's going to be an interconnected universe moving forward. But yeah, that'll be really interesting. I'm looking forward to that.
Booster Gold news. Dan McBride, Jeff Ridley, and John, I'm going to butcher his last name, Carcieri are to write Booster Gold. I don't know how much truth this is, but it's been out there and been reported. And so I haven't seen it debunked yet. Speaking of Booster Gold 2, I believe that Chris Pratt was recently on set of one of the films.
Yeah, he was on set of Superman supposedly. Yeah. So that'll be interesting to see if Booster Gold makes his appearance there. So.
Yeah. Batman: The Brave and the Bold, via Nexus Point News. Andy Muschietti, Rodo Sayaguez will co-write Batman: The Brave and the Bold. Production is expected to begin in 2025. So,
which I think that's the same guy that worked on The Flash too.
Yep,
so.
The Flash, and then Rodo did Don't Breathe.
Mm-hmm.
So, speaking of Batman, Hamish Linklater will star as Batman, the Caped Crusader. So basically, he's gonna voice him in the animated project.
Okay.
It's gonna release August 1st on Prime Video.
Mm-hmm.
So,
and come on, Jensen Ackles for live action Batman at the DCU. So,
there you go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Speaking of Jensen Ackles, I hope they bring Soldier Boy back for season 5 of The Boys.
Oh, they've got to.
Yeah.
They've got to. Especially if they bring in Jared Padalecki, the guy who played Sam. We got to have just one scene of those two together. That would be so perfect and awesome.
So, Karate Kid news, via Jonathan at Twistle's social media. Filming has wrapped on Karate Kid. That stars Ben Wang, Ralph Macchio, Ming-Na Wen, Jackie Chan, Joshua Jackson, and Sadie Stanley. The film will hit theaters May 30th, 2025.
Okay.
Power Rangers. Netflix is no longer moving forward with a Twistle's Power Rangers Cinematic Universe as Hasbro searches for a new partner. So if you want to see Power Rangers go forward, they need someone else to partner with for Hasbro, which I won't be surprised if Amazon or someone else picks this up.
Mm-hmm.
We talked about The Boys already. G.I. Joe. So there's going to be a Transformers G.I. Joe crossover. Now, Chris Hemsworth is confirmed to have a role in the new film. He will not be playing Optimus Prime, rather an unannounced character. Mm-hmm. This was via the producer Lorenzo D. Bonaventura in a recent interview. Now, hear me out. Do not make him Duke. Do not make him boring. If you're going to bring Chris Hemsworth into a live-action G.I. Joe, you have two options. Serpentor, Sergeant Slaughter. Make him one of those. Do not make him a character we've already seen. Do not make him some new character. I would love to see him play Serpentor and just go to town on Cobra Commander. But also, too, because you can't have Serpentor without Sergeant Slaughter. Because basically, if I remember correctly, some of Sergeant Slaughter's DNA was used to make Serpentor. Or no, maybe not, but Serpentor... No, wait, hold on a second, let me think. Reverse that. Serpentor was made because they needed a threat to counter Sergeant Slaughter. That's what it is. And so they used former old leaders. There was actually two Serpentors in G.I. Joe. The first one that was self-sabotage within the scientists within Cobra. But then Destro later on got together with other ones and created Serpentor. I would love to see him play Serpentor, or Sergeant Slaughter, either one. I think both of them. But don't give us some other boring character we've already seen. Don't make him Duke. We've already seen Flint already in G.I. Joe movie. Make him somebody we haven't seen on screen before. I would love to see either one of those two characters.
And don't waste a lot of CGI on him.
Yes.
It's Chris Hemsworth. Because, I think Jason said that, and I completely agree with that. Yeah. Like, such a waste to just put him as a CGI character or something,
I mean, you can make him Serpentor without CGI. Give him the costume. He has the build for it. He could walk around with the scepter, all that kind of stuff. The whole serpent thing, all that piece. Smack around Cobra Commander. He could do it. Last bit of news, we have Spaceballs news. So Spaceballs is a sequel in development at Amazon MGM with Josh Gad starring. Mel Brooks will be producing. So, yeah, I wonder how the sequel is going to be. Is like, could Josh Gad be the child of the princess and the dude flying the Winnebago? I can't remember his name.
I don't remember his name. Yeah, it's been so long. It's been 15 years since I've seen Spaceballs. So.
But it'd be funny if he was a child of that, or maybe he's the next Darth Vader spoof.
Yeah,
for the film.
Would
Lord
be interesting.
Maybe he's like the offspring of Lord Helmet, or Lord Helmet's tied to Lord Helmet somehow. So, but yeah, that's all for the news today. Do we want to do? Let me double confirm that The Boys is 8 episodes, because we could do one of two things. We could just do a single episode next week, or we could do another 4-episode run like today. What do you think we should do?
I don't know. I'd be down to do another episode next week. I mean, we could always do like one episode or do a couple episodes, whatever you want to do.
Okay. No, I'm flexible. So it's summertime here. I got no more travel coming up.
Like for me, like my biggest problem is watching like 4 episodes over weeks and stuff is I tend to forget the older stuff like a little bit or not remember everything that
That's why I have notes. I went back and watched and took notes.
Yeah, so I just try and remember everything off the top of my head, which I definitely
let me double check. Actually, yes, I should be able to do it. I have class next Sunday, but the last class ends right at 4:30 my time, so I might schedule it for 4:45. So we can do it. So 15 minutes later next week, we can do one episode 5, and then a little bit of news, and it won't be a 2-hour extravaganza.
I'm down. I'm down.
All right. Well, before we sign off, anything else?
No. That was an awesome episode. We talked about a lot. The Boys seems like it's getting to be pretty good, and I can't wait to see how the season ends. You know, I'm sad to see it go after season 5, though.
Me too. It's been a great kind of escape of other stuff that we've seen out there, and it's been a good thing to have in between other projects too. So. We'll be back next week for The Boys Season 4, Episode 5. For those of you listening on the podcast, please give us, rate us, like, subscribe, all that kind of stuff. You can always catch us live weekly, sometimes bi-weekly, sometimes different times in between, depending on what's going on. But you can always catch the live stream on Twitch, Twitter, our Facebook page, Trovo, YouTube, and Kick, shorts on Instagram and TikTok, and then the audio on wherever you listen to your audio podcast at. So with that, we will see you next week.
See you guys.